Hey, everybody, welcome to the TIMGA Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be with a special guest, Dr. Anderson Pena, occupational medicine physician and pain management physician. He's been in the Washington State area in California as well. So, Dr. Pena, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohammed, for having me. I really appreciate the time and, having all the welcoming words. I really appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, of course. And Dr. Pena, I'm just really excited for IMGs just to learn about your journey as a physician, coming here to the US and, bringing basically just going through the whole process. And we all know how difficult the process is. And now right now you're mentoring and you're giving back to future generations as well and future and physicians. So just really excited to, get all that knowledge from you today, Dr. Pena. But let's start here. Like, tell us a little bit about, hey, how did you, what was your journey like as an IMG coming to the U.S. and how did you get started?
Yeah, thanks. I just realized at some point this summer that it's been 10 years, about 10 years since, I would say maybe 11, actually more accurately 11 years since I started this journey. Effectively 10 years since I moved to the United States. So, essentially I am from Brazil. I was born, raised, and trained in the Brazilian Amazon. So I came from this region that's called Amazonas. So it's basically in the rainforest, in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest, and my whole family is there. I was the only person to kind of like branch out to faraway places, for the past 10 years. But all this journey sort of like started with curiosity, I would say. It
Mhm.
was never really an initial dream. It was more like
Mhm.
a curiosity of like having this sort of like international experience in my career. And when I was a medical student, I went to a federal public university, and this is how the system, medical training and medical education system is in Brazil.
Mhm.
I It was free of charge, free tuition. I went through this very competitive process. Went to medical school and did my medical school. It was about 6 years of training, and then when you graduate from medical school in Brazil, you actually are able to be fully licensed and be able to work. And it's very
Yeah.
similar in different countries, right?
Yeah.
In Latin America, in other continents as well. So I started my career working as a general practitioner in the Amazon, like serving riverside communities, and I was always very passionate about like this sort of like exploratory, let's go where
Yeah.
no physicians are, let's go where no one has gone
Yeah.
before, like this sort of like explorer energy, right? And I was able to learn a lot, and obviously, as any underserved, like very rural areas, you face a lot of challenges. You can be the brightest person in the room and trying to change the system, but
Yeah.
you need resources, you need people, all resources, including
Yeah.
financial, infrastructural, human. So eventually, I did that for about a year and a half, and then I just realized, well, I guess this is not my responsibility to change, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
It was very humbling. Um, and I got back to my hometown, and I was like, okay, I want to subspecialize, and did some urgent care work and emergency medicine, and then started kind of like studying for residency in Brazil.
Mhm.
And I wanted to become an anesthesiologist, and which ultimately go to pain medicine. And during that time, because I had some research connections doing that I developed during medical school, I was able to
Yeah.
actually get this observership opportunity in San Diego, California.
Oh, nice.
And to me, to be quite honest, at the time, it was more like a soul searching sort of like getaway, summertime. I'm
Yeah.
going to California. This is so cool. sort of like thing.
Yeah.
But when I had this experience, I was just like, it blew my mind of like
Mhm.
how, first of all, California is an amazing, place to live in and get trained. And I was able to meet other international medical students and graduates who were doing residency and fellowship at the time. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like how the seeds started kind of like germinating, to
Yeah.
me. I was like, I guess I actually can do this. I thought it was just so like unattainable and impossible, but
Yeah.
I did. That's how the this whole process started, and that was about 2014. It was not because my family was moving here, or
Yeah.
because there were conflicts or something pushing me
Yeah.
out of my
Mhm.
my hometown. It was my life as a physician was actually very comfortable there. I had achieved some financial stability. I was very happy with my lifestyle, my network there. But it was like the necessary next step, and that's how
Mm.
it started.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. And like, just hearing like the enormous talent IMGs bring, to the US, and and especially like how sometimes that is like, and in the podcast we don't need to get political, but it can be a challenge for IMGs these days, right?
Yeah,
Especially IMGs coming from different countries who maybe require like a visa status or something like that.
yeah,
um
yeah.
like how was the whole process of like, okay, when you said like, okay, here's like what I want to do, now I gotta prepare for the tests, and
Hmm.
then I gotta like apply for residency. Like, was it after your observership that you decided to, hey, like, I'm gonna prepare for the USMLEs and I'm gonna look for residency here?
It was after, yeah. So basically, the observership was an invitation, and it was kind of like through research, right? And
Yeah.
then kind of like one um, sort of like one point of contact, opened another door, and then subsequently things just started kind of like making more sense. Initially, the challenge was that where I come from, like my hometown, especially the institution, like I didn't have actually other mentors or someone like a little bit more senior that could actually show me the ropes on how to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So it was when I look back, I feel like it took me extra time, like incredibly, you know, an incredibly additional amount of time to actually get through, administrative steps and
Yeah.
at back then, and it's like a meme as well. Like when step one had a score, a numeric
Yeah,
score,
because like
and when
you gotta get that score, so everybody's delaying the process, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, step one had a score, and what was the other joke is that we still had the clinical skills
CS, yes,
test,
yeah, yeah.
which was the one that was actually a really high rate of,
Mm.
you know, yeah, it was a really high, like a really low pass rate actually for IMGs at the time, and
Yeah,
even for
yeah.
Americans, because it was a really
People
tough exam.
Yeah, people used to say, "Hey, don't go to Philadelphia." That was the
There was that. I actually did mine in Los Angeles at the time. But
like,
anyways, so going through the administrative part of it was challenging. So nowadays people have a ton more information. I think it's become more popularized. I can see this huge shift in the past like 10 years,
yeah,
especially after COVID. There was this like boom of more people actually globally being more interested in getting trained in the United
yeah,
States, despite of all this contentious regarding immigration status and
yeah,
stuff like that
yeah,
in the political climate. But it is interesting that even with that, there is still like a huge a pull in attraction for bright minds, especially in the medical field and medical research to come here. So that was a challenge for me initially. So I had to really like again being the explorer navigate through like rivers and roads and walk through roads that were unpaved,
yeah,
and I had to like pave some of those things, and there were lots of mistakes. There were a lot of things that I didn't know. I
mhm,
had to keep pulling myself up all the time because motivation is not always 100% all the
Yeah.
time along the process. So that I would say that was like the challenge. But once I once I was able to see things more clearly of like what are the steps that I need to take, I just
Yeah.
focus on tackling one at a time,
Yeah.
and that made things a little bit more digestible and mentally a little bit more a little bit more feasible, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely, man. And like, and as you said, like, I believe like there's just so much resources right now, like for IMGs, and like
It's
that.
overwhelming.
Yeah, that wasn't there before. Like right now, like somebody can just enter the space, and all you probably need is ChatGPT, right? That's it. You have AI, you got everything. It's just
Yeah.
like it's super easy to be like acclimated as an IMG. So so fast forward, man. Let's say you got through the steps, you applied for residency, and you got you got matched into a residency program. What was that whole transition like? Because like it's more of like cultural acclamation as well rather than
Yeah.
acknowledge. So
Yeah.
how did you deal with all those emotions? Like, did you have family with you during residency? Did you have a
Yeah.
loved one? How did you kind of deal with everything?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I looking back, I think the challenge there's always an adjustment period, and I think having gone through so many points of adjustment, every time I have to do a transition, like residency, fellowship to like not a job, or like moving apartment, there's or cities, there's always a period of adjustment that you I don't think we should oversee or neglect. It's important to take care of yourself throughout the process, and then really bring in all the resources that you have, your support system, your loved ones, even if they are like away,
Yeah.
So to me, I would say this is the trajectory. So moved to from Brazil, landed in San Diego. So I started like validating my degree and kind of like adjusting the visa status. I applied for a master's program, and the transition at the time was difficult because of financial constraints. So I had like savings, like I had
Yeah.
some cushion. So until I was able to actually get a partial um, merit scholarship for my first master's, it was a little bit tight. But just showing work, and asking a lot of questions, meeting with professors after classes, and just saying, hey, introducing myself, because one of the things that we don't have when we come from another country is we don't have
Mm.
social capital. So
Yeah.
for instance, what you are building with TIMGA, it's like you were sharing some of this social capital, right? I
Yeah.
I am at this point now that I know so many people in the medical field that I can just like send a text message or make a phone call on behalf of someone that has never set foot here. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like this is the point that you get when you climb the ladder, or when like you get through the steps
Yeah.
towards your becoming fully licensed and a practicing physician here. But that was like that was what I leveraged at the time. And then when I set to actually apply the first time for residency, my first match, I didn't match, and it was devastating. But I
Okay.
actually felt like it
Yeah.
was a good learning process. And then I
Talk
was
about that experience though. Like, talk about the experience. Like,
yeah.
what did you like after not matching? Like, what did you what are some pitfalls that kind of you advise to future physicians to like
Yeah.
not to so what was the lesson learned basically? Would you say?
you know I I wished I wish I had a good answer to
Yeah, I
tell,
agree.
like, and I would say like a good answer to, like, or a good advice to say, if it was good we would sell, right? If it was not good,
Exactly, exactly.
that is a joke, right?
Yeah, and Dr.
But
Pena, just to kind of like interject, this is
mhm,
like, and I don't know if you agree with it. I want you to kind of like let me know. A colleague of mine, he's a residency program director, and basically what he tells me was,
wow,
and basically like the whole process is like musical chairs, when it comes to IMGs. Like, because like, and sometimes you don't get a seat, like you're just standing. You did all you could, but it's
hmm,
just about attempts and just trying again and just trying to pick up yourself up
yeah.
and do more things. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the most important thing that like not matching has taught me is that I was not prepared for rejection. Like every person that goes to medical school, especially on like very traditional pathways, like I entered medical school when I was 17. I was like on top of my high school class. I was one of
Yeah.
the top 20 in the whole state for that, for those like 50 seats. And then, like you graduate on top of your class, you enter, but when you get here, it's like a completely different game, like
Yeah.
it's like going into the Olympics of
Yeah.
medical
Yeah.
training. Like there are all these countries, and then everyone is a everyone is a masterpiece of a student of an applicant, and not matching. I think it's really heartbreaking, but I think when you're going through the process of preparing yourself to go through the match, you also have to spare some time to plan ahead on how you're going to actually mitigate the effects of not matching.
Yeah.
And just allowing yourself of like, hey, I built a campaign, and it's just like a presidency, or like running for a seat in the Congress. Like there aren't
Yeah.
it's enough seats for everyone.
Exactly. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
and when people don't match or don't get that seat, what do? Like they usually regroup, right? But you
Yeah.
have to allow yourself, and not really like see this as it all or nothing.
Mm.
I just saw this reel today that was saying about just like how you deal with rejection, and it's like if there is a no, it doesn't mean that it's not yet.
Yeah.
Actually, if there is a no, consider that just a not yet, and it's
Yeah.
not like a no for life.
Yeah.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's what I wish I had heard
Yeah.
in the past, but I did have to. What actually helped me lift my motivation back to a point that I was like, okay, straight up, chest up, and then let's go back again, and then run another campaign and see how that goes. And then I matched, like in
Yeah.
my specialty of dreams, in a very prestigious institution. I was very unconventional, a very unconventional applicant. You know, like in the paper, I had to like leverage a bunch of other things. I was just not like everyone else that comes from
Yeah.
the traditional pipeline, and I matched. So made my dent in the program. I felt like it really expanded my opportunities, but it was like talking to mentors, like people that
Mm.
opened up doors for me. Like there was just one person that actually believed me and wrote me the letter and connect me with the other person and the other person.
Yeah.
And that's how I try to show up for people,
Yeah. Yeah.
when they're applying. Yeah.
Yeah. Social capital, man. As you said, it's really
Social
hard.
capital.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really hard to, as a like a new IMG in the country, it's really hard to get like sometimes it's really hard to even get like one letter of recommendation, right? It's just like to
Hmm.
even qualify to apply, you need like three letters. It's really hard to get that letter. I mean, like a really genuine letter, like somebody, and it's even harder for somebody to get you a call on behalf of somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Because that's even
Yeah.
more difficult, as you know. So
Yeah.
and that's why, look, and this is something wrong with the system, as you said, like it's a game of musical chairs. Sometimes like even there's 50 seats in Congress, there's so like, in 100 people are applying, thousands of people are applying. It doesn't mean like, hey, like everybody's bad. It's just like means like, hey, it's just there's not enough positions for everybody. And that's why like one of the things that I don't like with the system is like, in other countries, you get to work as a GP and you get to serve patients. And
Yeah.
and sometimes basically, if while you're waiting to specialize, you can apply, even in the UK and different areas as well. So that's why like I'm a really big supporter of these alternative licenses where IMGs
Yeah.
can at least work in a capacity with a physician,
Yeah.
be supervised, and then kind of like and then kind of reapply for residency the next year. At least have something in between, right?
Yeah. I'm actually very, when I was in residency, I think I followed what was a trend happening in Washington. I was like super, super happy. I was like deep like bird into like calls and during the COVID and stuff. But I would see here and there some of the you know like um oh my god, like just the governmental sessions that you would have,
Yeah.
that you guys would have with the governor and the commission, and I felt like it was just so nice and hopeful, because the whole thing is that yeah, it was not going to benefit me because my time had already passed, but I
Yeah.
had made into the traditional pathway, and I
Yeah.
kept thinking like, gosh, this is gonna help so many people,
Yeah.
because I couldn't actually work temporarily, even if it was in this sort of like, um, with a limited license. And
Yeah.
people as sometimes have also geographical limitations. They cannot move. Their kids are
Yeah.
in school, So it really creates a lot of it unburdens, I would say, the pathway for people for folks like us, for IMGs, and I'm very very excited about this possibility, and
Yeah.
I'm really really grateful that you guys are doing spearheading this for a lot of people in Washington.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, yes, man, I'm really excited about that as well, and I'm just hopefully like this can be like a mainstream thing because like look, at the end of the day we're trying to help patients, right? And there's
Yeah,
not a lot of care and available every time. So that's the number one thing. But
yeah.
Dr. Pena, talk about once you got into residency. So you didn't match the first time, the next time you matched, now you're in residency. How was it like kind of like adapting to the US medical process, dealing with,
Oh yeah.
EHR,
Hmm.
EHRs, billing, insurance,
Yeah.
social patient social issues, and all those kind of stuff. How did you deal with everything like that?
Yeah, so I would say there were a couple of things that were very challenging to me initially, and I didn't have um, like hands-on experience in the United States when I applied. So I basically had observerships, like kind of had an idea of what was going on, and it was mostly in high acuity settings. So it was ICU, operating room, and like transplant. And then I did a lot of research in trauma epidemiology at the time. And kind of like interacted with surgeons and anesthesiologists that were like in critical care settings. But when I started residency, it was very interesting to just kind of like get in that fast-paced environment of doing for traditional formal rounds, kind of like understanding the abbreviations and the lingo. I
Yeah.
think my first month was very hard, to be honest, and
Yeah.
I was so I remember just being so anxious because I felt like I cannot understand what these people are talking about.
Yeah.
But I was also very open to ask a lot of questions. It was a very steep learning curve, I would say, and like being able to actually complete documentation on timely manner. I'm such a slow typer,
Yeah.
and dictation at the time was not available to every resident like working in a given team. But it was very interesting. I would say like the main differences in the beginning was that I, as an intern in Seattle at the University of Washington, compared to like when I was an intern still doing my medical training in Brazil, we we don't we don't actually have to interact with so many like allied professionals as you're like
Yeah.
coordinating care or taking care of patients. I think that it was mostly like physicians and nurses, maybe pharmacists like here and there, but then this idea of like everyone having their computers, and then like wording pages. I had ever used a pager before,
Yeah.
so I remember my first week I was like, I'm getting these codes, I don't understand what is this. Is that like a glitch? And everyone's like, Anderson, you have to call back that number. And I was like, oh, I didn't know about that. So there are like
Yeah.
those things, like it would be like like
Yeah.
one dot, like a bunch of numbers, like, is this like a code? What is
Yeah.
this? Seriously, like I remember
Nice.
like some of my interns like, oh my god,
Yeah.
Anderson, you have to call back this number. So like I think the steep learning curve was a lot of communication, like having to adapt to a very different style of communication,
Mm,
learning how to effectively communicate in terms of like a closed loop communication. A lot of patient safety sort of like things that we
mm,
need to think about. And using a pager and finalizing documentation in a timely manner, which is like writing in a second language, in a third
yeah,
language, pretty much, which is medical terminology, and that was actually probably the hardest part for me. And I would say at some point, maybe within like 6 months, I felt like, oh, okay, so this like it's making sense. I'm getting better,
yeah,
like faster, more skilled. I was getting good feedback. I was asking a lot of feedback. Sometimes in the beginning, I was like, I have no idea how to handle the situation. So I would tell my attendings like, would you help me? Maybe could you just show me how you do that? Like, it works really well for me when someone does this one time
yeah,
and then allow me to do one time, and then I will do a couple of times, and then I'll be able to teach someone how to do it.
yeah,
But show me how you do this, and then I would just like mimic what you do, because you are my senior, so you are my role model. And some people are like attendees were very open to do that, especially the younger
yeah,
ones. The
mhm,
older ones were more like the Socratic like
yeah,
style of like making you self doubt what like you're talking
yeah,
about. But I would say that was the hardest for me. The those points were in my transition
yeah, yeah.
as a physician
And do you
in
know
residency.
basically, is there anything like let's say an IMG, like and the match is coming up right now, right in a couple of months. So let's say somebody listening to this podcast, like they match this year and they're successful. Is there anything that they can do to help prepare themselves?
Before they start
Yeah,
intern year, yeah, I think this is so variable depending on if they are going to stay in the city where they're applying for, or if they're going to move cross country,
yeah,
if they're going by themselves with family or significant other. um, I think the most important thing that I would say is that don't worry about trying to like learn anything during those like 90 days, like 3 months preceding, like in between your match week and starting your intern year. Um, take as good care of yourself as you can, because I think that's like one of the last times that you're actually going to be able to have solid sleep, some quality time with people that you love. If you're able to see really loved one, like your mom and dad, like whoever you really need to see, and just let them know, hey, I'm going to enter like this feels like a deployment period. I'm
mhm,
going into like a virtual military assignment,
yeah,
and my availability is going to be limited, access to me is going to be limited. We'll have to be flexible in all ways. Maybe talking about like an emergency plan as well is always good. Like if someone gets sick, how we're going to communicate those things, and then most importantly, just allow yourself some time to, I think, to really celebrate and validate that you've worked so hard to get to this point. It's actually mathematically a privilege that
yeah,
you made into the system, and it's just another. You're just getting into another like phase of. It's kind of like a video game, right? You pass
yeah,
another phase, but there are like several degrees, and just focusing on one step at a time, because during those 3 months, you have a lot of onboarding,
yeah,
documentation, a lot of logistics that actually take a lot of your mental energy.
mhm,
Um, and if you have visa requirements and things that you need to adjust, it adds another layer of complexity and sometimes stress.
yeah,
So just be really kind to yourself, and also select a few people that you really trust and that rooted for you to get to this point, and really like build like a little army of allies,
Yeah.
because you're gonna need, there will be a day you're gonna feel awful. It's gonna be really hard, and everything that you need is just like a friend that could send you, like a chicken noodle soup
Yeah.
through DoorDash, and
Yeah.
give you a call to say, hey, hang in there. You're doing the best you can. You're doing great. Just wrap up today, and tomorrow you're gonna, try again and keep going, because I think sometimes that's what we need, when we start intern year.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. And one more advice: do you think it's appropriate is respond to your pager, right?
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would, and I think one of the things that I actually had to, along the way, kind of like polish myself. I remember vividly two things. When I started my intern year, I was very self like self-conscious and concerned about my English, abilities, and like people understand what I'm saying. Some, like with math, sometimes, things, and as you get tired, sometimes after like a 24-hour call, like your accent gets thicker and things like that. But
Yeah.
I remember asking a lot of people, like, if I was communicating it correctly, and everyone's like, yeah, no, everything that you say is fine, is correct, like we understand
Mm,
clearly. And then when I look back, I think I was just like very self-conscious in a way that, was kind of like unnecessary. So what I would um, what I would recommend people is that if they have concerns about, their English, abilities, they don't have to, apologize. I think they can always just say, "How can I say this differently?" or "Am I making sense?" And if
yeah.
people say, "I'm having hard times understanding you," when you say, you can just say, "Let me try again." And I've done this later on,
Yeah.
and it really puts you in a position of empowerment, as
Mm,
opposed to, like, being, I think, being just apologetic by being in that room. So
yeah.
that kind of like really changed the way I show up, and patients will ask you where you come from, like it's just sometimes just obvious that, you don't look like them,
Yeah.
but I always use that as a positive. I had to shift that in my mind,
Mm,
because we hear so much, along the way, but I think it empowers you to show up in the room and really own the place that you actually earned. You
yeah.
earned that position. You matched. You were a physician. You were there to serve your patients, and you can always redirect. So those are one of the things that I think I was able to change along the way as you get more mature and more senior in that sort of like role.
Yeah, yeah. No, great advice, Dr. Pena, and I really agree with you. Right now, what does your life look like right now? Like after residency, finish everything. Like, what do you?
Yeah.
How's your time spent?
Yeah, so currently, I'm working full time, at UCLA. I want to really niche and focus on, learning and treating more, patients with chronic pain syndromes. I'm being always fascinated. So it's such a great. I'm biased, but it's such a great specialty. I really love what I do, and,
Mm,
it pulls so many aspects of, surgery, anesthesia, psychiatry, physical medicine, rehabilitation, internal medicine, so neurology, and this is like the clinical component of what I'm doing. I do I do have some, research interests in clinical informatics. I love not having to actually request, board, like IRB approval. So then we can just
yeah,
like work with like open data. And then obviously now, with the advance of AI and machine learning, it's amazing what we can do. So I'm kind of like bringing my research interests in this sort of like clinical, data analytics and clinical informatics, because it can actually allow me to collaborate with people from all over without restrictions of, like ethical restrictions and things like that,
yeah.
and
Nice.
also give them an opportunity to, develop their career, potentially apply for residency here. And I also dedicate some time, coaching, some some IMGs. They're predominantly from Brazil because
Yeah.
that they just started like looking for me online. But
Yeah.
I do have some students in Canada and in the United States and like in the Caribbean that I coach as well, and I think they will have successful matches next year. So I'm
That's
pretty
amazing.
excited for them. It's just rewarding to see
Yeah.
young
That's
folks
that's
getting there.
that's amazing. And if folks want to like reach out to you for like coaching help or something, is there any way
Yeah,
that they can get in touch with you?
yeah, definitely. I'll leave my email with you, and maybe you can share with
Yeah.
them. I try to select who I'm going to
Yeah.
work with, just because we don't have the time to
Time, yeah,
give all
capacity.
the answers to everyone. But
Yeah.
I'm happy to like come back and participate in in some of these Q&A sessions that I think people take more sometimes
Yeah.
in general. But I would say if you are already with steps in preparing to apply for residency, let's say 2027, and it's still kind of like figuring out application strategies, or you didn't match last year. I would say those are like people that I can help like rehabilitate their applications, because I had that issue myself, and
Yeah.
I had to like recreate my own candidacy, and I learned a lot along the way. And if I don't have an answer, I will try to use my network to bring the answers. So yeah,
Awesome.
I think if you share my email with them, it'll be
Yeah.
easier. So then
Yeah.
there's no misspelling.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, no, I will share it on the post and send it out to everybody as well. Dr. Anderson Pena, occupational medicine physician and pain medicine physician. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a wealth of knowledge. And we hope you can hop back on the show again in the future and just give us more
Yeah.
information as well.
Yeah, Mohammed. Thank you so much. It's such an amazing work that you do. I think when I initially came to the U.S., I thought I would become someone like you as well, and like
Yeah,
we do in some ways. But I'm
yeah,
really inspired by what you do for IMGs, and please, count on me to help out other folks, and I'm happy to share the amount of wisdom that I acquired along the way, and I just people to succeed and get to the goal of their dreams.
of course, of course. Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Pena. And yeah, and I'll take your word on that, and I'll definitely bug you next time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, happy holidays. It was really nice. Finally, having this moment with you, and I hope everything goes well for the rest of the year for you guys.
All right.